Today on Breaking the Chains, we will be attending a meeting at the Ghana Tourism Authority about the Diaspora's participation in the Emancipation Day Celebration.
When Ghana got independent, right, we were like 6 million. According to the British, we had sizable economic reserves, cash in the bank and so on. In fact, at that time, life in Ghana was better than in Singapore.
Yes.
We had more educated, yes, Singapore. Lee Kuan Yew did a miracle over there, and so on. And the cocoa prices were good, mineral prices were good. And, the British, for example, left just one secondary school in the whole of northern Ghana as independent. Kwame Nkrumah embarked on a massive social drive, education, health. Almost everything you saw, apart from the railway line that the British built, to take the minerals away, was in Nkrumah. Education was free. My father, for example, was trained in the UK from zero to whenever he didn't pay a cent. A lot of our people were trained in all kinds of places just to build the human resource to develop the country. So we were doing well. And because of our insistence on the African personality and so on, tourism was not something we really encouraged as an economic activity in Ghana. Our tourism was focused on domestic tourism. So there was a State Hotels Corporation, hotels like, did you come to meet the Continental?
I lived in the
Continental. The Mervyn Peak used to be called the Ambassador Hotel, and they were all state-owned hotels. In one, and then in here, in Takoradi and Tema, and then the regional capitals had what we call the catering rest houses to provide decent accommodation, but the focus was on domestic or internal tourism. We saw, and this was the height of the Cold War in the 60s, so every white man, especially from the West, was seen as a potential spy, So we were not really interested in encouraging loads of people to come up, to travel to Ghana as tourists. And we also did not have the infrastructure like Kenya and Tanzania, which are those things built prior to independence. Our focus was on other sectors of the economy and so on and so on. Now we went through, all kinds of economic experiences. So around about the 80s, the government embarked on what they call the Economic Recovery Program that tried to diversify, according to the economic term, the resource base by moving away from the heavy dependence on cocoa and so on and so on and so on. So at that time, tourism became a little more important as a strategic sector than other areas. That was when PANAFEST was introduced in Ghana in 1991. That we felt that, look, what can we do as a country? What the products we have, who would it appeal to? And one of the logical reactions was that, look, we have all these slave castles or forts along the coast. We have this rich African, relatively authentic traditions and culture. We have speak English, and so on and so on and so on. So we believe that what is in Ghana will appeal to the Africans in the diaspora. So the United States or the black diaspora was seen as a major or potential generating market for tourist flows into Ghana. Now that is just point one. But then you have to create something around which will revolve the motivation to travel. So PANAFEST was introduced in 1991, and then the tourism ministry at that time, in conjunction with those guys, what do you call them? Oh, the name skips me. No, there was specific road shows in America, especially the black, like places like Chicago, Atlanta, where they have predominant black population, to talk about Ghana tourist product. We invited tour operators. I'm saying all this to lay a foundation for where the emancipation came in. And then we had Ghana Airways having direct flight. So within a very short time, we had this Dionne Warwick and so on. And then the president at that time, Jerry Rawlings and his wife, were very strong advocates for this connection of the African family. The Nation of Islam was given diplomatic status in Ghana. Our president himself, Jerry Rawlings, went around and so on. So the traffic from the United States started flowing we started getting, African American tourists coming here, touring around, and that was initially a tourism strategy, in addition to looking at the West Coast and so on. And so the emancipation was an experience that President picked. I think he went to Jamaica. He was invited. Was it Jamaica?
State visit.
Yes, he was invited as a guest, president. And he felt, well, this has resonance with that. So let's also introduce it to Ghana. So 1998 was the time the first Emancipation Celebration was held in Ghana, and it had, the door of no return for those of you who know the Cape Coast Castle. It's like our brothers moved from here, went across all over there, symbolically and religiously. Let this emancipation mark the return of those who went over there. So 2 of them were brought. Original thinking, they were going to be put on naval ships when the caskets was brought to Ghana, and traverse the same sea route through the Almina Castle. But they weighed a few things. So they brought them to, I think, Mori or somewhere there. Then they were put on traditional canoes, and then they came through the castle. Rites were performed, and they were given royal burials in Asimmanso. And Asimmanso has a history of being a very important point in the route of people who were transported, who were enslaved or captured and taken away. So the traditional authorities there, in conjunction with the Central Regional Administration, decided this should be the final resting place of these reinterred Africans. One from the Caribbean, one from the continental America. So it marks the return, or like the doorway has now been opened for the return of our brothers who went over there. So it becomes a site of healing, some kind of an emotional, religious, psychological reconnection with the motherland. And I was there in 1998. I used to work in Cape Coast at that time. Although I am not African American, there was a feeling you can't describe. I think there's a world we don't see. It's not everything that we see in this world. There was a certain feeling that was
aura.
That was heavy, and it was a big funeral. It was so it was like now the foundations have been created. We went, but we can come back with ease, and that was supposed to enhance the experience of the African, whichever part of the world he comes from, when he comes on a tour to Ghana, so that the African Americans tour in Ghana or the African diasporans tour, it's more like a pilgrimage. It's a tour, but it also has a certain symbolic and spiritual connection, as opposed to somebody who's come to look at butterflies in Kakadu National Park or sit on the beach and have a good time or play golf. That's also okay, but for us, that option should be available. So that was the basis of the emancipation. So, and it was supposed to be a yearly event, while the Panel Fest was supposed to be every other year. And so with emancipation, traditionally, there's always a Deba at the Asimmanso, that memorial ground. And there's always some speaker who talks about issues of relevance to Africans, both here and over there. And then there's the wreath laying ceremonies that, the numbers about those who perished, it depends on which historian you read. Some, but they were huge. They were huge. I mean, if you look at, but the population of that time and the percentage that was taken and so on, it really, so there's always that wreath laying ceremony and so on. And then with the eve of emancipation, and this is borrowed from the Caribbean part, not the United States part. There's the declaration that is made with performances and a spiritual ceremony in the Cape Coast Castle. So those are the three, the three pillars of the ceremony.
What is happening is the Emancipation 2016 is taking a turn, what I consider to be a more comprehensive and more spiritual direction in terms of the diaspora community involvement. And we've had meetings leading up to emancipation with Rabbi Kohen and the Diaspora Coalition. But the Diaspora Coalition is not the unique entity that's representing all of the Africans in the diaspora. So therefore, I suggested to him, and he suggested, let's interact with some of the diaspora community that you're talking about, Milana. And so this is the reason that we're here this morning. And we're coming here with open mind, and we're hoping that you will be very open with us and consider our passion that we have for Ghana and the passion that we have for emancipation, particularly Emancipation 2016 ceremony. And we're looking to actually play a role.
So we always wanted to have an input from I mean, you have lived fortunately on both sides. And for us, unless there are things that touch the whole world, like what's happening now, you know, the shootings and so on, the experience of the African in America for us is we really don't know. Okay, our observation also has been that the communication or the education with the resident Africans, if we should call it so, has not been exactly the way it should be. There's a perception that this emancipation is for you guys,
and we
the Americans.
We thinking it's a Ghanaian thing.
Absolutely.
For Ghanaians.
And voila, so you see the disconnect, and so that is where we have to work together, because it's for both of us, the family, wherever you are. Even at the political level, African Union described the black diaspora as the sixth region, just like, so there's absolutely no reason in trying to perpetuate, an artificial gap that has been created.
But I asked, is there educational outreach? You know what I mean? And an educational outreach is having educational fora throughout the year, all centered around this grand finale date that's coming up we call Emancipation. And so I am here as a volunteer, Ben, and I want you to know that I am here as a volunteer to get my expertise free of charge for that. Is there going to be opening for a solidarity message coming from this entity?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Yeah,
But and this solidarity message represent all the family.
Well, one could speak to that fact. In other words,
but what has traditionally been doing is the Diaspora and African Forum. We want to acknowledge the presence of the African American or African diaspora there. But the programming is said that we can give all the individual groups an opportunity to say something. So we need the most representative that you should decide.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is what I'm saying.
All right.
In other words, he acknowledges that the African diaspora is in the audience here, and we are giving them the platform to give words of solidarity.
We have somebody land on the ground almost every week or almost every day. So don't exclude them. In other words, our message, if we say, well, who coming to Ghana this week? Then they'll tell us who coming this week. So you put out like this message about Emancipation Day. We're gonna note that there's a ceremony going on 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, and August 1st. Okay, so that will give some information to the ones that's coming in here to probably put it in their itinerary. Especially since it's in the central region, which is where the slave castle is, which is already one of the top things where everybody want to go.